Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of The Devil House of Duskvale. My name is Ian, and I will be your narrator for today. The blood moon hangs high over Castellanter Manor, but as our four adventurers push themselves upright from where they had been lying face down on hard, unnaturally warm stone, they see themselves in a different place. The wooden rafters of the observatory are gone, replaced by a hazy red, infernal sky. Before them is laid out a massive, crumbling city, made almost fully of bone, the entire terrain covered by an ominous, bloody haze. All around them are the immaterial forms of wandering spirits, sputtering in and out of vision. Otherwise, the place is completely desolate. A hot breeze drifts by them, carrying with it distant screams. Kosef draws his holy blade, and the shrieks grow louder, as if responding to its radiant presence. Vinberger scans the city before him.
Kosef, can you tell what layer of hell this is?
The paladin scratches his chin.
I don't think this is a layer of hell, Dr. Horace. I think it's some kind of demiplane, layered on top of the material one.
Maybe that's why I could sense so many devils, Laylan says. If I was picking up the ones from this plane too.
As Kosef scans the area, he spots a large hill in the center of the city, not dissimilar from the hill outside of Duskvale. And like the hill at Duskvale, the Castellanter Manor sits atop it, although this version of it looks more akin to a palace. With the keen eyesight gained as a 6th level totem warrior of the Eagle Barbarian, the party leveled up to level 6 after passing through the portal, Dr. Vinberger can tell that the ruin and dilapidation that had befallen the house in their world is gone. This place is well kept and immaculate, like what the real-world version probably looked like when it was still inhabited. Structurally, it appears the same as the version in their world, if slightly taller. The exterior is decorated with silvery metals and rich, dark woods. The only truly unfamiliar aspects are a large wall running around the exterior of the property, and a slightly shorter fence just inside of that. A blood moon hangs in the sky, even in this realm.
I'm telling you, it's layers!
Which means, I'm guessing, we need to go to Ellie's room. Or the observatory.
Vinberger listens a moment, trying to see if he can still hear Ellie's voice, as he had heard it on the other side of the portal. But there is only silence, accompanied, as always, by the distant shrieks and screams. Kosef narrows his eyes and points his sword towards the hill.
Shall we?
Laylan nods, and the group sets off into the city of the dead, passing by shades and crumbled buildings. No sooner have they entered, however, than they spot a small object floating in the air before them, gently spinning in place. Bert takes a step nearer and notes that it looks like the bottom half of a music box. Not as if it were broken, but rather as if it had been built without a top. In the center of the box is a small ballerina in a dancing pose. The trinket gives off a shadowy aura as it hovers, not dissimilar to the vague wisps that surrounded Ellie's shade in the real world. Bert snatches the box out of the air and carries it back to the group. As he turns it over in his hands, however, the gnome notes that the ballerina turns to compensate, keeping her finger fixated on the palace, like the needle of a compass.
Let's keep an eye on that,
he says. The artificer pulls out a small pouch and slips the music box inside. The four adventurers press deeper into the city, and, not encountering any resistance, come at last to the base of the hill. But as they climb it, they find their way blocked by the tall exterior wall, and a massive locked gate built of some silvery bone material. As he approaches, Vinberger glances up to the blood moon in the sky, and a realization hits him.
Oh, hope we don't. We should be careful not to be in here when that sets. Or we're going to be trapped here for another 14 years.
His brow furrows deeper.
Also, if this world is linked to ours, then that means the other side of every single carpet portal is going to be here. We should remember, as best we can, where we put them all. No one open any armoires.
As the Goliath speaks, Laylan whips out a set of thieves' tools and slips them into the lock. He had multi-classed into Rogue when the party leveled up, so he is now Ranger 5, Rogue 1. After a moment of fiddling, the lock sizzles and undoes itself, the gate swinging open on its own. As it does, and before the group can duck out of sight, a small, bony figure appears in a second-story window, staring out at them. It's small, about the size of a 15 or 16-year-old, and looks much the same as Donzo did in his true form, a juvenile bone devil. It turns its head and says something to another figure the party can't see. It seems as if some sort of alarm was triggered when the gate opened.
So much for the stealthy approach. Do we just go in?
We go in.
Kosef lowers the visor on his helmet and Bert's alchemical homunculus takes to the air. They stride through the front gate and onto the grounds, watching the bone devil as they go. But the fiend doesn't seem to be reacting to them in any way, just watching.
So, do we go room by room, or straight to Ellie?
Straight to Ellie.
Right.
They continue across the grounds and come at last to the second, slightly smaller barrier, the fence. Another gate stands in their way, held shut by a heavy padlock. Again, Laylan whips out his lockpicks and fits them in, but this time he can't quite get the tumblers to click open.
All right, let's knock it down. Come on, Kosef.
Laylan stands back as Kosef and Vinberger charge forward and slam into the gate, which buckles under their weight, but holds firm. As they pull back, defeated, Laylan casts a glance back up to the second-floor window and sees the young bone devil gone.
I could try to sneak through and let y'all in. Real sneaky.
And there's also a back door. We could try that.
The group considers the Goliath's proposition for a moment, and then they agree.
Good thinking.
They start around towards the back of the house, sneaking along the outside of the fence. Laylan leads the group with a natural 20 on his stealth check, while Kosef and Vinberger take up the rear. But despite their mediocre rolls, nobody seems to notice Vinberger's large form, or the clanking of Kosef's armor. Finally, they reach the back of the house. The fence, about 15 feet high, seems to encircle the entire property, and the only gate they've seen is the one in the front. So Laylan casts jump on himself and vaults over the wall. Vinberger clambers up and over the fence after him, leaving Bert and Kosef on the other side. Poor Kosef. The paladin tries to scale the fence, but he's overcome by the weight of his armor nearly immediately, and falls to the ground with a loud clatter of plate mail. He gets back to his feet and tries again, only to fail again just as quickly, falling prone once more. Kosef rises and takes a moment to compose himself, before scaling the side of the fence for a third time, and rolling his third 2 in a row, falling flat in the dirt once more. Meanwhile, Laylan is standing on the other side of the fence grimacing, wincing at every clatter of the paladin's armor.
God, just run around front and I'll let you in. Quickly, you're making so much noise.
Kosef nods and jogs around to the front of the gate with Bert, the paladin's armor clanging loudly with every step. Laylan and Vinberger run to keep up with them on the other side. Before they've gone half a dozen steps, they hear a shriek from behind them. Kosef turns to see 4 spined devils bursting through the roof of the shed, leathery wings spread wide. They dive towards the group, but Laylan manages to bring 2 down before they even have a chance to attack. The other 2 streak down towards Kosef, who manages to slice one in half with 2 swings of his sword. The other swipes at the paladin, but gets tangled up in its fallen brother and crashes headlong through the fence, where Vinberger finishes it off with 2 well-placed blows. The group pauses and listens for a moment, but the rest of the grounds seems silent. They run around to the front of the house and finally reach the front gate, Kosef and Bert once again seeing the heavy padlock on the outside.
Should I smash it?
Well, I mean, at this point, everyone already knows we're here. So yes.
Kosef brings his sword down on the lock and hacks it in 2 with a tremendous rending of steel that echoes through the yard. Laylan pulls open the gate, and Kosef and Bert rejoin the others.
All right, what do you boys say we just open the front doors?
Kosef nods.
That's our only recourse.
Or maybe we should enter from a door that's not on this side of the house, because they'll all be coming this way. Remember, there's the servants' entrance. They know we're here somewhere, but they don't need to know exactly where.
The group debates for a moment, and quickly decides that while the front door would put them closer to Ellie's room, that benefit would be outweighed by the stealth advantage of entering through the kitchen. They creep back around to the rear of the house, all silent save Kosef, but the others manage to help him as best they can. They reach the kitchen door, and Laylan pops it open without a sound. Inside, they see the same kitchen as in the real world. Only, like the exterior, it's clean, maintained, and well-stocked. A wingless spine devil stands inside, chopping food. Its back is to the door, and it doesn't seem to notice them. Laylan draws his bow and puts 2 arrows into the base of its skull, and the devil drops without a sound, save for the clattering of its knife hitting the floor, the blade of which is identical to the rusty, blood-covered ones Vinberger found on the group's first arrival at the manor. The difference, of course, being that this one is clean and shiny. Kosef eyes the knife for a moment, and then turns away.
Let's head up to Ellie's room.
Is the compass still pointing towards the observatory, though?
They check the music box, and it does indeed seem to be pointing towards the observatory. Or, at the very least, it doesn't seem to be pointing to Ellie's room, based on their knowledge of the layout of the house.
I think we should just bypass Ellie's room entirely. She's in the observatory, so there's not going to be anything in there that will help us. The less we fight, the better.
Kosef nods.
Let's keep an eye on the compass, though. If we walk past Ellie's room and it suddenly turns...
The others agree and then make their way silently towards the servants' hallway. They reach the closed door to the foyer, and Laylan cracks it open. Beyond, he sees what looks like the setup for a banquet. A long table has been set up in the middle of the foyer, with a troop of fiends, about 30 to 40 spine devils, laying out food and utensils. A handful of bearded devils stand at various points throughout the room, watching doors and generally serving as enforcers. To get to the stairs to the second floor, the group would have to make it across about 24 feet of open space without getting spotted. And with the sheer number of devils in the foyer, that would be effectively impossible. The group withdraws a few feet from the door and begins a hushed discussion.
We could always go back outside.
If we do that, we should try to get in through Terenzio's room.
Well, I mean, if we're going up to the observatory anyway, we might as well skip Terenzio's room entirely and climb straight up to the 4th floor.
And the risk is if we fall.
I could cause a distraction with Bart.
Everyone turns to Bert.
Why? So we could sneak past.
Would it work?
I guess that depends if all, 30 spine devils.
Well, they'll all probably look.
Yeah, but then they'll hear clang, clang, clang running behind them. Like any distraction's gonna be offset by this dude.
He nods towards Kosef.
Then we need something loud enough.
The group remembers that there was a chandelier hanging over the center of the foyer in the real world, and Laylan had seen a matching one when he peered through the door in this world.
My alchemical homunculus could get up to it.
To, spit on the chandelier chain and have it come crashing down?
Bert nods. The rest of the group glances between each other, and then they agree.
There's going to be a lot of chaos.
A moment later, Laylan cracks open the foyer door, and Bart flits through the gap. The group watches as the homunculus circles up to the ceiling, unspotted, and then stops, hovering beside the chain of the chandelier. Bart draws an infusion of acid into its beak and spits it over the top 2 links of chain. There's a momentary sizzle, and then the entire mountain of glass and crystal comes crashing down into the foyer, smashing the table and trapping several spine devils underneath. All at once, a clamor breaks out in the room as the devils run to investigate. For a moment, all eyes are on the wreckage. The group sprints out from the servants' hallway, crosses the foyer, and begins to dash up the stairs, making dex checks to avoid tripping. Laylan, Bert, and Vinberger reach the top in a matter of seconds, turning the corner and out of sight without being spotted. Kosef, on the other hand, catches his foot at the very top of the stairs and falls with a loud crash. He clambers up the remaining few steps and reaches the landing, but not before one of the bearded devils shouts something in Infernal that could be roughly translated as, "Look, there he is." Turning back, the paladin sees 4 of the purple fiends dashing up the stairs with glaives in hand. Hearing this, Laylan dives into the nearest room, the one that had belonged to Terenzio in his world. Bert and Vinberger follow, with the Goliath pausing just long enough to say,
"Keep going! We'll ambush them as they pass!"
Kosef nods and takes off down the hall towards the 3rd floor stairs, the metal clatter of each footstep echoing off the walls, the bearded devils following close behind. Meanwhile, in Terenzio's room, the other 3 realize that they are not alone inside. Because the moment they enter, their eyes fall on a small little bone child sitting on the bed, about the size of an 11-year-old. It's dressed in a boarding school uniform, like the ones in Terenzio's armoire, and in its hand is a perfect replica of the wooden sword they had found in the younger Castellanter's toy chest. only this blade is sharp and made of silver. 2 glowing red eyes are set into its empty skull, and Bone Terenzio stares at the group with the same empty gaze as Donzo. Vinberger stands perfectly still against the wall of the room.
So he's noticed us. I'll just keep an eye on him, and if he does anything, we'll just,
Yeah. The Goliath turns his head slightly so he can see Laylan with one eye.
Do you want to watch the door, and I'll watch the creepy bone child?
Sounds good.
Outside, they can hear the 4 bearded devils pass by, pursuing Kosef down the hall. Laylan cracks the door and fires 4 arrows at 2 different devils. In the same instant, Vinberger leaps into the hall, and Kosef turns and makes a stand. Within a matter of seconds, all 4 fiends are dead, and the party is unharmed, save for Kosef, who took a minor cut from one of their glaives. Vinberger glances back into Bone Terenzio's room, but the little devil hadn't moved at all during the exchange. The Goliath looks down to the bearded devil bodies at his feet. Unlike in the real world, these devils didn't crumble when they died, as if their death here was somehow more physical, more permanent.
What do you say we just drag these bodies into the room and close the door, so it's not obvious we were here?
The rest of the group agrees, and they quickly drag the bodies into Bone Terenzio's room. The little fiend just sits and watches them. Laylan knocks another arrow.
Right, now we deal with this thing.
Vinberger shrugs.
I think we can just leave it. Don't fight battles we don't need to.
As the Goliath says this, Bone Terenzio hops off his bed and walks over to the bodies of the 4 bearded devils. He reaches down with his knife and starts carving them open, sending spurts of blood out over the floor of the room, and he starts laughing.
Okay, he's gonna have fun. Let's go.
Kosef motions the group out into the hallway and then closes the door behind them. They continue towards the stairs, but make another loud crash as Vinberger crit fails a stealth roll and knocks the shield out of Kosef's hand.
Oh, God, you guys need to learn!
6 more bearded devils appear at the top of the stairs. The group turns and starts to dash down the hall, but as they go, they start to hear the laughter of Bone Terenzio grow louder and more frenzied. And as the bearded devils pass by his door, it swings open, and a long, spiked tail lashes out, piercing through the chests of each of the fiends and dragging them back into the room. The door closes, and the laughter continues.
Probably a good thing I didn't try to pop him, right?
Yes.
The group finally reaches the 3rd floor stairs and proceeds upwards, succeeding, for once, in their stealth checks. They reach the 3rd floor hall without incident and find it empty. The alcoves holding the hellhounds are closed, and the group decides to sneak by without opening them, which they do without incident, arriving finally at the door to the master bedroom. Laylan turns to Kosef.
See if you can figure out what's on the other side of the door. Then we can work from there, yeah?
Kosef nods and gives a sniff, but his divine sense doesn't pick up anything intensely evil in the area, not in the alcoves or the master bedroom. He sniffs again and is certain. Not only does he not smell evil, he finds he's actually sensing good?
Guys, weird news, but I'm hearing harmonious music from in there, which means it's good.
Are you sure?
The paladin gives another sniff.
Yep, pretty sure.
It's Ellie. Let's go.
Kosef tries the door, but it's locked. Laylan pushes him aside and inserts his thieves' tools, but the moment he does, the lockpick crumbles into dust.
God damn it, I just got that.
The group stands perplexed for a moment until Bert gasps.
The key!
He reaches into his bag and pulls out the 2 halves of the large iron key that he had found behind false panels in the master bedroom armoires in the real world. The gnome uses mending and fuses the 2 halves together, handing the result to Kosef, who inserts it into the keyhole. The paladin gives a turn, and the door unlocks. Laylan deflates slightly.
Why didn't I just wasted a great lockpick, didn't I?
Kosef pulls the door open and notes that the interior of this master bedroom does not match that of the real world's. It's still split down the middle, with either side containing separate decorations, but this time, both sides look evil. A long table of bright gold torture implements, the same color as the metal of the nursery, stands in the center of the room, and, hanging on the walls, suspended by shackles and pinned by stakes, are who the group recognizes as Lord Castellanter and his eldest son, Osvaldo. And that's where I'll leave off this episode. Next time, the last pieces fall into place. The final battle with Lady Castellanter looms, and the first chapter in an epic concludes. My name is Ian, and thank you for listening to Episode 7 of The Devil House of Duskvale.